So hello guys, and welcome to another discussion video. And the Nintendo Direct had quite a few announcements that I've been pretty interested in. One that was definitely the most exciting for me was the Thousand Year Door remake, and I didn't shut up about it for a whole week. But since I've got my thoughts out of the way about that Thousand Year Door remake, since I'm a huge Paper Mario fan and I had to do a lot of videos about that, I want to discuss another game that was announced in the Direct that also gauged my interest and was also something that I've been wanting to see for quite a long time, since I also really like this game. And similar to the Paper Mario series, this is a series that has kind of had an identity crisis over the years, because after the first game, it really did something completely different and drove that concept into the ground. And a lot of people didn't want to see the series return. And when Piora leaked it, a lot of people were very concerned and very disappointed. And that's because this is from the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series. And yes, this has been quite a controversial series over the years. Not really super controversial, because it's not like an insanely huge series or have an insanely huge budget like other Mario games, but it still is a very weird series overall. So I was very pleasantly surprised to see that we got a remake of the first game from 2004, and it was just really refreshing to see. Because like I said, with that formula that they kept using, it was basically in the style of Lemmings, where you had to guide these toy Mario figures to the goal, which was completely different from the original game, which was basically kind of an evolution of the Donkey Kong 94 formula. Honestly, I would go as far as to say that it's a sequel to Donkey Kong 94 on the Game Boy. It is pretty much a sequel. It has some of the same elements, with the fact that you have, ropes, ladders, different things like that, different enemies and things, that were carried over. Not everything, but a lot of things were carried over from Donkey Kong 94, so I feel like this is basically the sequel to that with the original Mario vs. Donkey Kong game. And honestly, it is a very good puzzle platformer. Honestly, one of my favorite puzzle platformers, up there with Captain Toad and a few others. I know there's probably a few other puzzle platformers that I love that I'm forgetting, but Mario vs. Donkey Kong has always been up there as one of my favorites. And it's also nice because it kind of is, along with Donkey Kong 94, they're both kind of successors to the arcade Donkey Kong games, which is just really cool overall. They kind of embrace a lot of those elements. So it was just amazing to see that they finally returned to this formula. And it did seem kind of unlikely, but it does also make a lot of sense why it's returning now. Because the Switch era in general has kind of been embracing kind of referencing the original Donkey Kong, with Super Mario Odyssey, with New Donk City, and bringing back Pauline fully. And I know Pauline was kind of already back in the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series. They just kind of fully brought her back and kind of added her in more Mario spin-offs. And on top of that, in the Mario movie, Mario and Donkey Kong also had that rivalry and that fight and everything. And that was cool to see as well. So that also kind of makes sense why they're doing this now. It almost seems like this is partially kind of, the fact that they're doing this remake, it kind of seems like that is kind of tied in with the movie a little bit. Not officially, but just the sentiment of remaking this game, less than a year after the movie, just makes so much sense in a lot of different ways. And then also the fact that the Switch doesn't kind of revolve around the touchscreen when it comes to controls and everything. I know they could have pulled a Mario Maker 2 and just use the touchscreen anyways, but I appreciate the fact that they just actually decided to go back to this formula and everything, since it was really 20 years overdue at this point, since it will be the 20th anniversary of this game next year, which is kind of hard to believe. Like, when you think about the Mario vs. Donkey Kong series, it doesn't really seem that old, despite the fact that it is, like, this series is, like, a successor to Donkey Kong 94. So, it's just really cool to see overall. I actually already did mention some of these points in the video that I made a couple weeks ago about, like, the initial rumors for this, like, Mario vs. Donkey Kong game and everything, because, like, a lot of people were pretty worried about it, and justifiably so, because, I mean, there hasn't been a traditional, like, or mainline Donkey Kong game in so long, and then also the fact that it could have ended up being another Lemming-style mini Mario game. I feel like that was partially justified, but in that video, I did mention that there was, I would say, a better chance than ever that the original style of Donkey Kong 94 in the GBA game would return, and I did even mention the possibility of a remake as well, so I kind of got that prediction right, and I am so glad that I got it right, because this is really the best case scenario for the series. I mean, I guess that you could argue that a brand new game that kind of builds off of this was kind of the best case scenario, but I feel like that was kind of unlikely looking back now, since we're so late in the Switch's lifespan and everything. And also the fact that this also uses, like, so many, like, 3D assets and things, it kind of makes sense that they would build it off of something. Like, building it off of the original game just makes a lot of sense, so they could actually experiment with this formula in 2.5D with these 3D assets and everything. So with the next game, potentially on the next Nintendo console, like the Switch 2 or whatever, we can get another DK94 style Mario vs. Donkey Kong game, kind of building off of this. Hopefully it doesn't do, like, the same formula, well, the same exact formula, and is just basically, like, super iterative of this. But it would still be better than the Lemming-style games, regardless. And I do feel like they could do a lot with this style, since I feel like it is less limited than the Lemming-style Mario vs. Donkey Kong games. Because, like, just with Mario's movement and everything, that kind of makes way for some really interesting puzzles and everything. And I feel like you could do a lot more with this than just guiding the mini Marios through the level. Like, that just felt so limited and just so, just weird in general. I like puzzle platformers where you actually control the character and everything. I mean, as obvious as that sounds, I just, really like the formula of the original game. And I also want to mention that this remake looks excellent. Like, it's honestly, I know it might be a little bit of a stretch to say that it's one of the best looking Mario games on the Switch, but it's definitely up there as one of the better looking games on the Switch in terms of Mario and everything, because the character models look great. Like, Mario's model here looks a lot better than some of the other spin-offs, especially the Mario sports games. Like, there is so much polish here, it's so much detail in, like, the different designs here and the levels. Like, I really like how the backgrounds for the levels look. It almost reminds me of the backgrounds in Super Mario Maker 2 for the 3D world style. This remake gives me a lot of those vibes, and I really like that style. There really is, like, I would say there's kind of a lack of true 2.5D Mario games. Like, I'm fine with Wonder doing, like, its own style and everything. I love that style. But I think it's really cool that we're also getting, like, a 2D style Mario game. Well, in this case, a spin-off that uses, like, a 2.5D style here. And I think it looks really cool, because I kind of have, like, definitely a soft spot for that, like 2.5D kind of style and everything. I think it looks pretty cool, and it's a perfect way to recreate the pre-rendered sprites from the original game, which didn't really age the best, kind of in retrospective. Is, like, a lot of other GBA games aged pretty well due to, like, their aesthetic and style and everything. But Mario vs. Donkey Kong, it looks fine, but it didn't really age that well. So it's nice to see one that has, like, a better style here. And also some of the other models that I didn't mention, like Donkey Kong's model, also looks really good as well, and it's definitely one of the best looking in-game Donkey Kong models that I've seen. Like, there's a lot of detail there, and yeah, it's just, and on top of that, there's also the cutscenes as well, which are like fully animated and everything, because in the past, the Mario vs. Donkey Kong cutscenes, like throughout the series, have just been like static images, and it just looks super low budget, and almost kind of funny how they were handled, especially in Tipping Stars. Like, it just looked super weird, and just very low budget, and it seemed like they didn't really care that much. So it's cool to see that they're fully animated now. But I do have a couple nitpicks about this remake and everything. For one, which really isn't huge, it is a little disappointing that they aren't using the original Charles Martinet voice clips here. Like the "come back here, you bigger monkey" and stuff like that. I don't think those will be in this remake, because I think there was like one from the opening cutscene that was taken out, unfortunately. And they also replaced Donkey Kong's voice clips, which I don't really mind. I kind of feel indifferent towards that, since I've never had a problem with the modern DK voice, which I think is pretty fine. But they're also using, like, the modern Charles Martinet voice clips from, like, Mario Kart 8, I assume, or also, like, I guess, like, any Mario game since Mario Kart 8. I'm not sure which voice clips exactly, but if they are using Charles Martinet voice clips, I feel like they should use, like, the original, like, uncompressed versions of the originals, because I'm sure Nintendo Software Technology still has access to the uncompressed versions. So I'm hoping that they are incorporated in some way. So, yeah, and then there's also the fact that this remake is going to be $50, but I don't think that's too big of an issue, because there is the potential that we could get new content here. Like, they're already adding multiplayer in this remake, so I do think there's a possibility that they could add, like, new content in a similar way to how Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe added new content with, like, the Merry Magaland, as well as, like, the Magalore Epilogue, because that was $60, and I was a bit concerned about that game at first, with that being full priced. So in this case, I'm hoping that it gets some extra content, either in terms of, like, some new levels, or hopefully the scrapped level editor that was planned to be in the original game that was scrapped. And to put that into perspective, like, with the level editor, there's been a level editor in, like, nearly every other Mario vs. Donkey Kong game. And I feel like this game, especially the original game, would benefit the most from a level editor, especially due to the fact that you actually control Mario in this one. So it would be great to see a level editor in this remake. So yeah, anyways, Mario vs. Donkey Kong looks really good, and it's definitely the best possible scenario in terms of things we could be getting from this franchise. So yeah, anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Twitter if you want to. Goodbye.